And welcome. My name is Bernard and I'm the developer of the Dark 8 character generator for the German role-playing game The Dark Eye. And this video is going to be an introduction into a new feature in version 14 of the character generator. As of today, the 29th of January 2022, this version 14 is not yet released, but we expect to release it during March. And what's new in version 14 is mainly targeted at people who use the rules in English or in general do not use the German rules. The feature allows us as developers hopefully to translate the application into, or the rules into, more languages, because there are other editions of the role-playing game in other languages than English and German. There's a French and an Italian and I think a Spanish and a Dutch edition, and this should help us to translate the rules into these languages or incorporate these editions into the application. Also, this will allow people who use non-German rules to access the German rules and maybe add their own translations. For example, if you find a spell or a special ability in the German rules that is not yet translated into your language, you can use this for your character even when you are not using the German rules, and you could translate the text, how the spell works, what the name of the spell is, and make this translation permanent in the application. And you can then share this translation with the other people in your group so everybody knows what the ability you have does. You could also use this to change the translation if you don't like it, or change the wording. This would even work for German, so you could change the German wording of things and how things are described and so on. And also to help you as someone who does not speak German understand the German rules, and there's a simple integration of Google Translate. So, but now let's look at what has changed in the application. On the right you see version 14 that is going to be released, and on the left I have as comparison version 13 that is just currently out in the scriptorium. So the first change is when you start creating a new character. That's what it looked before. You had to choose which rule system you are going to use, either the German one in German language or the English one in English language. And if we had other languages, then these options would also be listed here in the drop-down. So now if you start character generation in the version 14, you still have this drop-down to select the rule system, but there's only one in here because it's always the German rules, even if you see the name in a different language. But below you are choosing which language you want to translate the rules to, and the translation will be applied to the German rules as far as it is available. So everything we have incorporated and everything that is out in English yet would be translated to English, and everything else in the rules would still be in German. Now when you start character generation, before you were greeted by this screen where you could simply check the rule books you wanted to use, and this would add the elements that are in this rule, the spells, the special abilities, the combat techniques and so on, to the character generation, and you could choose them then for your character. Now if you start the character generation in the new version, it looks a bit different. There are more entries here because this is everything we have entered from the German rules that's available, and some of these are marked with a German flag, which indicates that these rules are actually in German language. So if you set a checkbox here, you will add German language stuff to the character generator. And I translated the names of some of the books as far as I was sure that this name would be the one that the book would eventually get if it was translated into English, because I know there is a book called Aventuria Compendium. I was pretty sure that the second Aventuria Compendium would be called Aventuria Compendium 2. And the same with Gods of Aventuria 2 and Magic of Aventuria 2 and 3. I did not translate the regional supplements that are about different regions, and I translated some of the source books like Aventuria Armory 2 and so on. But as the flag indicates, these are still in German language. So, for example, let's say we want to take something from the Aventuria Compendium 2, and we set the check mark, and now the compendium adds a lot of combat special abilities, and you can see here we have Alertness first entry, and then Auflaufen and Ausfall. The second and the third entry are German elements that are not yet translated, and there's no official translation for them. And when you click on the info button and look in the rules browser, you see the explanation on how the special ability works is completely in German. The name is in German. Some things are translated because they are already translated into English. And now there is there are a few buttons up here that should help you to translate this text. The first one is this one. It simply copies it copies all the text here into the clipboard, and then you can paste this into some application or on a website that helps you translate the text. And the second button is a shortcut to Google Translate. If you click on this button, it will open the browser and it will open Google Translate with the German text on the left side and the English text on the right side. The text on the left side is detected what language it is by Google Translate. So this would also work if you are using the English rules and you don't understand the English rules and you want them to translate into your language. If you're not an English speaker, then this should also work to translate the English rules, and if you or any other language rules. And if you want to translate in a language other than English, you have to choose up here behind the wheel what language you want to translate to. For example, if I want to translate French, I can switch this to French, and you will see the translation is now in French. Now we have here an English translation, and let's say we want to permanently add this to the application. So every time we click here, this is in English. To do this, there is a new menu entry here in the File menu, Manage Translations. If you open that up, you will be greeted by a dialog that shows a tree of all the root systems. Again, we only have the German one, and the translations that are available currently, the different languages. We have a German translation, that's not really a translation, that is what the roots are originally in. They are internal translation, and there's this English translation, an internal one, and you can see here these are the books that are translated in this internal translation. Now if you want to add your own translation, you click on the Add button here, and you'll be greeted by a bit of intimidating dialog. That's because I added a few explanations that hopefully make you understand what you have to do here. First one is selecting the rule system. Again, we only have this one, the actually German, the Dark Eye rules. And you're going to choose what will be the text the translations will be initialized with. When you click OK on this dialog, there will be a lot of translation files created, and these translation files already contain translations into a language, and this is the language you select here. So the translation files you will create, if you set this to English, will contain English text as far as they are available. Everything else will be in German. And next step is to select the language you want to translate to. We want to add an English translation, and we select the English language. We could also choose a country if we wanted to translate into a certain dialect of the language, but that is usually not necessary. And the last step is to select the directory where you want the translation files to be created in. I will have something prepared here. So now I click OK. The files will be created. If you click here, you will see this is where the files are now located. Now if I go to this folder, you will see there are a lot of files in here. TS files, translation files. The structure of the files in here, the names of the files, or whatever files you put in here is not important. You see the files on the root of this folder are all the files that contain texts from the core rules, and for the different additional books there is a subfolder, but that's not really important. You can rename the files in here, you can delete files in here, you can add additional files in here. That doesn't matter. When the Dark Age starts and you create a new character, it will simply load every TS file it can find in this folder and every subfolder. The only thing that's important is that there's a translations JSON file in here. That's important because that's the file that the Dark Age uses to recognize the folder as a translations folder. So now we wanted to translate the special ability or the combat special ability Ausfall, and it was from the Compendium 2, and there is a folder for the Compendium 2, and there is a file for special abilities for combat special abilities. I open that in a tool called Qt Linguist. You can download this tool from inside the Dark Age. There is a button directly here that lets you download the application for the operating system you are on, and there is also a help button that explains how to use it and basically tells you most of the things that I'm going to tell you here in this video. So back to the linguist. The first thing you want to do when you start it for the first time is to check or uncheck these two buttons in the toolbar, because they will only create warnings and error messages that are actually wrong, because the Dark Age uses this tool a bit different than it's originally intended. So now what you see here on the left is all the elements. In this case we opened a file of special abilities, so you see all the special abilities that are in this file. You see the first one is special ability Ausfall, and if you click on it, you see on the right text that are associated with the special ability. So there is simply the name of the special ability and then the description on how the rules for the special ability work. And we want now to translate this. So let's look what we got here. The translation for Ausfall in this case is failure, which is completely wrong in this case, because the word has a double meaning in German. I think the translation would be lunge. I don't know. I looked this up. I'm not quite sure. But let's change it to this. And then the description, we simply, without proofreading this, copy the description from here into this text field. And when you have entered the translation, what you want to do is click on this button. This will mark the translation as finished, and if everything in here is marked as finished, then also this entry here on the left will be marked as finished. What you also can do is simply click on the icon here to change it. Or you can also, if you have to do several translations or more than one, you want to go through the file one entry after another, you can click on this button, which will mark the currently one as translated, and it will move to the next untranslated text. You can also do this when you are editing here. You hold down the Control key and hit return, and this will basically do the same. It will mark the entry as translated and will move to the next untranslated entry. So now we have this translated. I save the file, go back to the Dark 8 and start a new character creation. So now let's check the Compendium 2 again and look on the special abilities folder. There is no Auswahl any longer, but if we scroll down here to L, there we see our translation, and if I click on the info button, then there is the English translation we just entered. So when you have done any translations, you could clean up this folder. You could simply remove all the files that are where you haven't done any translations and only include the one which you have done any work on. Then you could zip this folder and you could send it to a friend if that person wants to use the translation tools, or other people in your group. And from within the Dark 8, they can simply use the Manage Translations folder and click here on the Open Translations button, and then navigate to the Translations JSON, select this, and they will have the translation in the Dark 8 too. In this case, this does nothing, as we have already added this translation. So another thing, we still have here the German flag on the Aventuria Compendium. If you have completely translated it, or simply if you want to make this go away, you also use the Manage Translations dialog. You select the folder where your translations are in, and you click on this button, and here you simply can choose which books are translated in this folder, and you can click the Aventuria Compendium 2. Close this. This has no effect on an already opened character, but if we open it again, or if you start a new character generation, or after a restart of the application, then you will see it is no longer marked as being in German. So you could also use this not only to add new translations, but also to change something. So you could simply find an entry for, let's say, sagacity or intuition, and simply rename this, and then this element would have this change name everywhere it is used. You could also use this to change the German rules or the German wording, and so on. So I think I've covered now everything. That is a feature, as I said, that's new in version 14. And if anybody out there is interested into translating the rules into a language that is not yet supported, one of the official translations, then I would really be interested to hear from you, because currently we are looking for people who can do this work, who own the rulebooks and are able to speak these languages and do a proper translation. Also, I might also consider, if someone does the work, for example, translating the core rules into a not officially supported language, I would also be willing to integrate this into the Dark 8, or at least provide this as a download, optional download on the project page. So that's it for now. That's the main feature of version 14. There's also a lot of new material for the German rules. Mostly we have revised the already supported rulebooks, because there were still things missing. We did not implement new rules, new optional rules or new focus rules, but there was still some things missing: equipment, some special abilities, some professions, and so on. And we added this to the German rules, and this is then also available for everybody who uses the English rules. So that's it for now. Thank you.